香港近年咧一路推動創意產業嘅發展。根據統計處最近嘅調查咧，創意產業嘅企業咧已經達到咧係有32000家，而從業員咧亦都有達到咧係188000。其實香港咧係好有條件係推行呢個創意產業嘅，因為我哋資訊自由流通啦，中西文化匯聚，香港人咧亦都好有創意，亦都好靈活嘅。我哋好多時都能夠利用互聯網，每一個人咧都可以做創作者，將我哋嘅譬如話係blog 啊，我哋嘅影像啊、相片啊，或者係自己創作嘅一啲嘅歌曲啊、圖像啊，可以喺互聯網同大家係分享嘅。有啲咧呢啲創意仲可以變成商機添。但係與此同時咧，亦都會咧引發到一啲嘅同知識產權有關嘅問題。咁我哋喺呢個創意同分享同埋知識產權之間，點樣能夠取得一個平衡，同埋達至雙贏嘅效果咧，實在係值得探討嘅。今日咧，我都好高興請到咧互聯網界嘅專家，亦都係喺亞太區好出名嘅黃平達先生 Pindar， 多謝晒你接受我訪問。Pindar， 你咁有經驗啦，可唔可以同我哋啲年青人分享一下咧創新同埋創意對佢哋嚟講係有啲咩機會呢？
It's a very good question. Very simply, creativity and innovation is the future, or that's where the future opportunities and value, as I see it, lie. Now, how do I come to that view? Well, once upon a time, I was a young man, and I was started the first internet service provider when I was 24 in Hong Kong back in 1993. So that's what, almost 18 years.
Yeah, when internet starts.
That's right. So over the last 18 years, I've had one question, which is, what is the equivalent of oil in the Industrial Revolution for the Information Revolution? So after 18 years, I'm glad to report to you that I think I found the answer. And that answer is creativity. Now, why is that? Well, as we know, you can go on the internet now and you can find all the data that you could possibly want. But the interpretation of that and the difference, the value add, is really where the difference lies. So why is that relevant to the youth? Well, that's, in my view, in Hong Kong, where are the opportunities for the youth? Are they going to work for large industry? Are they going to work in so-called the traditional sectors? Or are there new areas they can champion? I believe that area will be on the internet. Now, the differentiating factor between Hong Kong and our Hong Kong youth and all the other youth is not how fast they can calculate sums. It's really the difference in value add in how they create new forms of information. Now, let's put it simply. In the 1970s, in Hong Kong, we had the manufacturing sector, physical goods, physical properties. And we've had the last 30, 40 years of prosperity in allowing these physical goods, garments, etc., toys, flowers, be traded all over the world. And the challenge, as I see it, is how we can make money in many ways from the trading of intellectual property. And because I think Hong Kong now, we don't really have any factories that make things. That's all in China. I think the finesse will be how our role in China, we work together, not only in manufacturing, but also the manufacturing of intellectual properties. Now, the example here is, I think we all go to see movies. And many advanced economies or companies who are just countries which are a little bit more ahead of us, the United States being an example, they have a brilliant media industry. They keep talking about intellectual property. And it's something which is quite foreign to many of us because we are very practical people in Hong Kong. But intellectual property, I think, has been our blind spot. And let me explain. So in our secondary schools, we have a new curriculum, compulsory curriculum, liberal studies. Okay, so that's important because you can't believe what you read on the internet. And so how do we know what on the internet is true or false? That requires our critical thinking. But what we also don't have is how do we have our insight? Because now what we find is everyone's open 24 hours a day. And our time is becoming more and more scarce. So how do we make more and more productive use of our time is in many ways through insight and through creativity and innovating. Because if we just want the raw data, it's already there. It's too much. And so how do we, what I think now that is the trend are things like social networks, where what's the currency, what is the real money, is not physical money that we think. It's things like opinion, informed opinion. I don't have time to read the thousands of background material. I just want to know what Winnie thinks, because I trust you, I know and I value your insight. So the real question becomes, if we're not going to physically make things, physical property, then how are we going to earn our living, so to speak, in the future? And I believe that's intellectual property. How we make intellectual property, how we sell intellectual property, and how we gain the revenues from that. That's not just within Hong Kong, by the way. It's also international. And that's why I got involved with things like Creative Commons.
Yeah. 所以咧，你認為香港係需要有一個 intellectual property 嘅 trading platform， 讓我哋啲年青人咧能夠喺佢哋 content 裏邊增值啦，或者係點樣去分析佢哋嗰啲資訊資料上高咧，係令到佢哋嗰個分享咧嚟得更加有意思同埋有價值嘅。
Absolutely. I mean, trading, people think of the Hong Kong stock market, Hang Seng Index and stocks. And we're very good at that. We're one of the best places in the world for trading stocks. And trading of intellectual property should in many ways be no different. The problem is, what is the price of an idea? Okay? What is the value of an idea? And there are various different intellectual property strategies, some at a country level, some at a company level, some at an individual level. But the key point is, it's very difficult to price an idea. And so, or an intellectual piece of intellectual property. So, for example, this video, or I take a photograph. How do I price that photograph? Don't forget, we were a city of traders before.
Yeah,
and we still are.
Entry port.
Absolutely. And we still have that mindset, and we're very good at it. In other words, we can find very imaginative ways to use the market. We're also a free and open economy. We believe in market price, right? The best market price. If we can create a market, an international market, or a market just for Chinese language, for example, intellectual property.
華人嘅市場。
Exactly. One country, two systems. Then we can be a catalyst. We can be a facilitator, a bridge between East and West, a role which we've traditionally played and done very, very well. With physical goods. With intellectual goods, I think it's very early days. I think Hong Kong has a competitive advantage. And I think we can be a first mover, not necessarily a cooperate. But the challenge is, how do we serve our own markets? And I think the mistake people make is to think that Hong Kong's edge is infrastructure. Okay, we talk about bandwidth, we talk about our deep water port, mobile internet, etc. I think it's wrong. Our real resource are our people. And in that regard, our youth. Because their view, they think differently. I mean, I know I used to think differently when I was 24. And just like everyone in Silicon Valley, some of them were dropouts. Like myself, I dropped out of a PhD. Look at Apple, Steve Jobs, he's a dropout. Bill Gates, he's a dropout, etc., etc. I mean, it's not. I mean, don't get me wrong. Academic qualifications are great, but thinking differently is where the value is. Creating, being a true creator, and finding a way that you can monetize that creativity. So trading is one way, but not everything is measured in money. And that's one of the things that I would like to appeal through your video. So things like social enterprises, social capital, are also very, very important. And again, I think in Hong Kong we are very pragmatic. We take what works, and we find out what works very quickly. We're a great test bed. If things are mispriced or they are of less use, it will not be adopted here. We're quite ruthless in that regard. And I think we can use that same perspective in an area which I believe will be the future, which is the intellectual property area. Why is that? Because all the factories now, for our concerns, are in China. Are we going to compete with cheap hands and cheap labor? I hope not. Are we going to be able to compete with cheap brains? Because I don't think it's a question of cheap or not cheap. I think it's a question of being innovative and creative. Because that's where the real premium right, lies. That's where it's very difficult. And that's where also there is no monopoly. Who has a monopoly on creativity? I don't think Apple does. And given the problems that we face with 7 billion people on this planet, in terms of energy, environment, new thinking is required. Unfortunately, new thinking sometimes is very disruptive. Okay? It challenges the old way of doing things. It challenges, for example, the oligopoly in Hong Kong. Right? The people who 30 or 40 years ago were the new entrants. They were the young upstarts.
Yeah.
And they got into flowers and real estate, and they are the new big fish.
Yeah.
And I'm interested with the young fish who will be tomorrow's big fish.
Yeah.
And I believe innovation, creativity will make that happen.
我都非常之同意你頭先嘅講法，希望為住我哋年青人嘅將來同埋創意產業嘅不斷發展呢，呢個你頭先形容嘅 IP trading platform 呢，係喺香港能夠盡快可以成立得到。